Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into something totally unexpected. We're looking at the director and the machine, basically the wild intersection of philosophy, theater, and artificial intelligence.
So, there's a crazy collision happening right now between ancient theater practices, centuries-old philosophy, and the absolute cutting edge of AI. And it's all to solve one of the biggest headaches in tech. Get this, a veteran theater director recently said, "I spent 40 years teaching actors to convincingly tell the truth. Now I'm training machines to do the same." Is it that wild? Behind the scenes at these massive AI companies, there's a quiet hiring boom. But they aren't just snatching up coders. They're hiring actors, theater directors, performing artists. People whose entire careers revolve around figuring out if a human emotion actually feels real. At first glance, that sounds like a total mismatch, right? But the skills you need to direct a human actor and evaluate an AI model, they're shockingly similar.
Let's talk about why this is happening. Researchers call the core issue the intent gap. You've probably felt it yourself. Think about the last time a customer service bot gave you a perfectly grammatical apology. It made sense, right? But it felt totally hollow. That's the intent gap. The AI spits out perfectly logical sentences. The facts are right, the grammar is flawless, but man, there is just this nagging feeling that the words have no real lived experience behind them. It's kind of like looking at a hyper-realistic painting. You see every brushstroke, but your brain just knows it's not a real photograph. The AI has perfect grammar, sure, but nobody is actually home.
Okay, so how do we fix this soullessness? Well, we can actually look at famous acting teachers like Sanford Meisner. He defined acting as living truthfully under imaginary circumstances. If we apply that to AI, we can think of the AI model as a brilliant but totally hollow actor. I mean, this actor has infinite range. It's memorized literally every script ever written. But it doesn't have a body, no childhood, zero lived experience to draw from. So the prompt you type in, that acts as the scene's given circumstance. And the human evaluator, they step in as the director. Their whole job is to catch when an AI's line delivery is technically accurate but emotionally flat and give it the specific notes it needs to get better.
But to direct a machine this complex at a massive scale, we actually have to borrow from about 2 centuries of humanistic philosophy. Yeah, we're getting philosophical here. It starts with semiotics. If you're not familiar, thinkers like Ferdinand de Saussure pioneered this. It's basically the study of signs and how meaning gets encoded in language. And when you think about it, large language models are essentially giant statistical engines for semiotics. They know exactly which words or signs statistically follow other words. So the very first structural question a human evaluator has to ask the AI is what observable signs, language, and objective properties are actually physically present in the text.
But signs aren't enough, right? We have to pair that with hermeneutics. This is the philosophical theory of interpretation, how we actually decode the deep contextual meaning behind those signs. Philosophers like Wilhelm Dilthey made a huge distinction between just explaining something and actually understanding it from the inside out. AI, it is phenomenal at explaining, but it is frankly terrible at understanding. That's where the evaluator steps in to do the heavy hermeneutic lifting. They judge the context, the tone, the naturalness, basically figuring out if the AI's response actually fits the human moment it's trying to be a part of.
There's this philosopher Hans-Georg Gadamer who argued that true understanding needs what he called a fusion of horizons. Basically, your personal history meets the text's history, and together they create something totally new. But here's the catch with AI. When you talk to an AI, you're bringing your massive, complex human horizon. The AI, it just brings math, a statistical distribution over a vocabulary. It doesn't have a horizon. It's a statistical void. Because of that, the human evaluator literally has to manually build the bridge between the two, teaching the model what humans actually mean when they talk to each other.
So, the real breakthrough was figuring out how to turn all this heavy 19th century philosophy into a tool people could actually use every day. In the early days, evaluation rubrics were terrible. They were stuffed with academic jargon, asking clunky things like, what does the response communicate? But then evaluators realized something brilliant. The grading criteria itself is the sign. They completely simplified the process down to 2 questions. First, the semiotic question. Is it there? Does the text actually have this thing? And then, the hermeneutic question. How well is it done? Boom. Simple, lightning fast, and philosophically rock solid.
This shift was a total game changer. It led to this massive library of evaluation criteria, organized into 4 specific domains. This gives our human directors the exact vocabulary they need to tweak the machine's performance. It works on a spectrum. You start at the semiotic domain, looking at the raw observable structure and facts. Then you move into the transition domain, which checks for stuff like clarity and relevance. From there, you hit the hermeneutic domain, which is all about highly subjective things, tone, style, nuance, naturalness. There's even a custom domain for really specialized tasks. And evaluators don't just use every single one at once, they cherry-pick the exact notes needed for the specific performance they're looking at.
Now hold on, before we get swept up in the beautiful nuances of tone and style, the AI has to pass what evaluators call the 4 hard gates. These are absolute deal breakers. We're talking factual accuracy, groundedness, instruction following, and content boundaries. Think of it like an actor completely breaking character or just wandering off the stage. If the AI makes up a fake fact, invents a bogus citation, totally ignores your prompt, or spits out harmful content, the evaluation score is instantly capped. Period. These gates are totally non-negotiable. Because honestly, it doesn't matter how beautiful the writing is if the core foundation is completely broken.
So what does this actually look like for the people doing the work? It's a really cool 3-step process. Step 1 is the quick, holistic gut check. They score it 1 to 5. The evaluator reads the AI's response and instantly locks in the rapid, intuitive human judgment before overthinking it. It's just raw instinct. Step 2 is the atomic evaluation. This is where they zoom way in, doing a meticulous, line-by-line, evidence-based grading of the text. And finally, step 3 is the integrated outcome. They look at that initial fast gut feeling and compare it against the slow, rigorous evidence they just found.
This whole workflow is actually built around something the theologian Friedrich Schleiermacher called the Hermeneutic Circle. It's this cyclical process where you understand the parts by looking at the whole, and you understand the whole by looking at the parts. By doing that quick gut check first, gathering granular evidence second, and then looping back to compare the two, the evaluation process honors both that immediate, totally human intuition and the rigid, disciplined analysis. They just constantly refine each other until you reach true understanding.
Which brings us to a pretty profound realization about the entire AI industry right now. As AI keeps growing and scaling up, the ultimate bottleneck? It's not going to be computing power, it's not data centers, it's not even the engineers writing the code. See, engineers built an actor with infinite range, but they didn't, and maybe they literally can't, train it to be believable. The real bottleneck is a humanities bottleneck. There's this desperate, pressing need for artists, writers, and directors to painstakingly sit down and teach these machines what it actually feels like to communicate like a living, breathing person.
So, I want to leave you with this final thought. To build the future of artificial intelligence, to cross that intent gap and actually put a ghost inside the machine, we kind of have to look backward. We have to deeply rely on our oldest human traditions, meaning-making, philosophical interpretation, theatrical art. It turns out, figuring out how to make a machine speak truthfully is the exact same problem as figuring out what makes human understanding possible in the first place. Pretty wild, right? Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and hey, keep looking for the humanity inside the tech.